Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right. Hello. Welcome to GSMC Football. That's the podcast. Hosted by me and my good fellow at his own home, quarantine style, Mr. Brice. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. I'm feeling good. Still surviving out here.
About to say, how did you make it through that storm last night, bro? It was pretty bad. Trees were falling, tornadoes touching down in College Park. He was getting it.
Yeah, man. I don't know if you heard about that house that was blown onto the highway. But,
no, I did not. What?
Yes, bro. There was a house blown into a highway, bro.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man. It was rough, but obviously me, I'm a night rider, so I was up through it. By the time I think I fell asleep, it kind of died down a little bit, so it wasn't anything crazy when I fell asleep. But I could hear it.
Around
things happening.
3 o'clock, the storm was getting hectic.
Lights turned off and on. You know how it goes.
Surprised me, my lights were on the whole time. I thought, because a few weeks ago, we had a pretty bad one for 5 minutes, and my whole neighborhood's lights and power were cut off for at least 2 days. This time, it was a way worse storm. No power. No power outages on my end.
They probably repaired it and made it even stronger.
I don't know. But we have some things to talk about today. We have some free agency signings. We have some people getting extensions, some draft talk, some more trades, trading some more Bill O'Brien going on, and some other things. But first, tell me about this Christian McCaffery deal. And we can talk more about how running backs are not making any money.
So basically, obviously, Christian McCaffery, I think some people would say, has been the best running back in football for the last few years. And today, the Carolina Panthers awarded him with a 4-year extension of $16 million a year. So if you do some calculations, that's about I don't know if my calculation is about to be correct at all. 16, 36, 46, 48, actually. What's the other 16 going to? About something $60 million a year. So $70 million a year, whatever. But he's getting paid a lot of money, basically. And I think he was coming into his last year of his deal this year. So obviously, this is usually when, if you've been a great player for a franchise like a rookie deal, usually before your last year, they like to re you up. And so Christian McCaffery is now getting paid, and now it's the highest paid running back in the league. So
is that a per year basis?
Yeah, per year basis.
Okay, I'm about to say I don't think he was touching that $90 million. And
I haven't really discussed how important this is, because this also has made Christian McCaffery the highest paid running back in NFL history. So there you go. So I know you have a very strong opinion on running backs and feeling they don't get paid. So what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, he is their whole entire offense. I feel like if it weren't for the fact that they're basically pseudo rebuilding, I think this deal would look a little different, but he is everything for that team offensively, from running back to wide receiver to sometimes running tight end routes. It's getting hot. He does it all. He might have to start throwing the ball to him, considering that before they signed Teddy Bridgewater, we just didn't know what they were going to do, but it didn't seem like they were going to bring back Cam. So here we are. They had to pay him. What are we going to do? Let him go into free agency next year, or probably franchise tag him? So it's nice to see a running back not get franchise tagged. And maybe this makes the market better for guys like Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, as Alvin Kamara is on the same contract length and time as Christian McCaffrey was. since they came into the league at the same time. So maybe this makes the negotiations a little bit more interesting for his end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, is there what Christian McCaffery does for the Panthers? Obviously, is people can make jokes that he's the best wide receiver and running back on the team, and he's done so much for them, even though they haven't had the most successful seasons while he's been there. But he's definitely a guy that if you have a successful offense, if with him playing at the level that he's played at these last few years, you know your offense is going to be top notch, at least from the backfield in terms of versatility. The only other running back I think right now who is we consider a top flight running back, maybe a Saquon Barkley, because the Giants use him in many different ways. I don't think they use him to the same extent as Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield as much, but they do use him out of the backfield, obviously, in the run game. So it could give you a little insight into what Saquon Barkley might get when his deal gets closer to being done, because he'll probably be like, I think I'm the best running back in the NFL, and if he got that, I should get more. So this could actually keep setting the market up higher, because that's usually how the market works, is that, oh, I think I'm just as good as this guy, if not better, so let him pay me more, and we'll have to see how that actually ends up working out for him when that time comes. So if anything, this could reset the running back market, but we'll have to see and give running backs a threshold. Because, I mean, this is more than Zeke's getting, too. So, obviously, that's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
I think that it all depends on the team who has the running back who deserves the money, where they're at financially. When you look at what happened with Todd Gurley and the Rams before they traded him, it was really you should never, as a GM, make a deal like that. That deal was, they're still paying him the money. I think they're late on the checks right now, but they owe him money. And it's a lot of money that they owe him. And not to say that anybody could have predicted that Todd Gurley was going to literally have pre-arthritis in his knees and he was not going to be the MVP form that we saw literally not even 18 months ago. And all of a sudden, now it's looking like he's taking his career in a different direction way faster than we would ever predicted. But that's just how sometimes the game goes, and that's why you can't really pay these guys a large sum of money like that in one sitting without really thinking about it. And the only way you can do that is when you have, say, a quarterback that is either A, on a young deal, or B, someone who you don't think is going to be your franchise guy, so you don't have to really worry about overpaying a quarterback that you're not going to keep anyway. So, for example, the Rams may have overpaid Jared Goff. I say may because he could turn it around when football is back. But as of right now, the indicator scale is they overpaid Jared Goff, and it's not even close how much they overpaid Jared Goff, because he was non-existent last year comparative to his Super Bowl run. Mm-hmm. And that money alone is tying up their whole team. They can't move anything. They have no draft picks. They are in they're in super bad cap places. That's why they had to trade Brandin Cooks, which we'll get to a little bit later. But they had to make some draft capital real quick and in a hurry because they literally had none.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Like I said, they paid Jared Goff, but don't forget they gave Aaron Donald a lot of money. So that's also what's holding up their cap too. And then they're gonna get Jalen Ramsey if they resign a lot of money. So, you know, they're paying big time players big time money, but it's showing its effects. Can't keep everybody you want to keep. So the Rams need draft capital because you got to use young players to plug those holes at cheap and still get good quality play, because you ain't gonna be able to sign other quality players since you're giving quarterback big money, defensive tackle big money, potentially a cornerback big money. You know what I'm saying? That's why Dante Fowler walked. A lot of guys like Nikhil Roby walked. Now they traded Brandin Cooks because they don't have any money because they gave it to their best players, but you know, you don't really have any money to give to any other position, so you're letting go of a lot of guys. And so that's why sometimes it's hard to look at the Rams and think, can they even get better during this stretch of having a very unflexible salary cap?
No, I mean, I think they can they can improve on what they already got going on. I think they've drafted pretty well, all things considered, you know. It didn't work out. The bang or bust play didn't work out for them. They lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but they did make it, although controversially. They made it to the Super Bowl. They just didn't finish all the way through. So now you have to fight your way back to that same place, and it's a lot harder once you've already made it because you have all these guys who you keep getting older year in, year out. So people don't get any younger, and people are going to want their money because their time in the league is not guaranteed. So you never know when your time is up, so you got to get the money while it's hot. That's why Aaron Donald was sitting out all those times, because he knew that the longer they wait, the less money or the less his body was going to be able to play this game, and you never know when your time is up. Look at Todd, bro. You never knew. We never could have predicted that Todd Gurley would regress to this level after coming off the best season he's had ever, MVP caliber. And look at him now. Not to say that he's a horrible running back, but he's definitely not the same guy. So you have to make sure you get yours while you can. And Todd got his. He was a smart man. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, let's take a break here, and then we'll get into the Brandin Cooks trade, since we're already there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so Brice, we over the weekend, Bill O'Brien got back in the lab, and he cooked up a hot one. He sending Brandin Cooks to the Texans. Oh, I'm sorry. He's getting Brandin Cooks from the Rams for that second round pick, and I believe a fourth. I know there's two picks involved with that. Is it a second and a fourth?
Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah, he flipped a guy who was looking for more money, and he said, okay, can't afford you, so we're just going to trade you for more draft capital, because they are also in a bad place. They don't have a lot of picks, so they got some picks, and they still need a wide receiver, so they went out and got one and still was able to retain at least one second round pick. I still believe they don't have a first round pick yet in this draft, but I don't think they're going to get one. But Brandin Cooks for the Texans, so Deshaun Watson has a medium-sized name weapon. He's not as flashy or as big time as, of course, DeAndre Hopkins, but he can get down the field still. He's still very fast, and he can still open up a defense. But where does this leave the Texans now, pre-draft, in your opinion?
Well, okay. Well, first I want to talk about Brandin Cooks before I talk about the Texans, because Brandin Cooks has been tossed around like a thing in society, and I don't like it because he is a very talented wide receiver, and he is in all positions: Patriots, Rams. Who was he with before? It was the Patriots, Rams. Who was he? I forgot who he was
drafted by the New Orleans Saints.
Exactly, and he was a top receiver there. He's been a top receiver everywhere. He's gone, and for some reason he keeps getting traded.
Let's calm it down here. He was a top receiver with the Saints. He went to the Patriots for a first-round pick in the back end of the draft. That ended up being Ryan Ramczyk. He did not live up to Ryan Ramczyk. I'll tell you that. He's not a Ryan Ramczyk as far as productivity.
Listen, it's New England. I'm not surprised. He still had a good season for what it was. And then they traded him to the Rams for what? Was it like a third or a second?
It was a first-round pick. He was traded for a first-round pick twice. I remember this because that's why everybody was complaining when DeAndre Hopkins was not traded for a first-round pick, and they showed that infographic of all these wide receivers who were then traded for first-round picks. Brandin Cooks was traded twice for first-round picks.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so, basically they show, my point is that, so this man can play. Now, Brandin Cooks is not your prototypical number one because he's not the tallest guy. He's like a shortish top receiver. But he can make plays. He's a deep threat, obviously. And yet he's a player who a lot of teams always feel like, well, we need to make some changes. We can just trade him away and bring someone else in. And so now he's about to go to another team. I'm sure him and Deshaun Watson are going to have great chemistry because Deshaun Watson, that Houston passing game, when Deshaun's on it, all the receivers can look great. And so I'm just sure Brandin Cooks is going to put up numbers. Is he DeAndre Hopkins? No, but he's still a good receiver. You still have to respect him.
But are you sure he's going to put up numbers?
I mean,
are you sure about that? Let's look at this, right? Let's really think about this. So he goes from being basically a pseudo number one. I don't really call him a number one on the Rams because Cooper Kupp really is the guy there in the wide receiver land. They have a pretty good tight end who in Vernett, that's his name, I believe.
Yeah, Jared Vernett.
And they find a way to get the ball around, but I don't know. I feel like Cooper Kupp was the guy there. At the Patriots, that's kind of iffy. I guess you can say he was the guy by default, but their passing game.
Might I add, I just pulled up some stuff. I mean, through 5 seasons and through what he was with the Rams, the first year he was with the Rams, the Super Bowl year, and his year with the New England, he did get over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. In his first year with the Rams, he did get 1,200 yards and 5 touchdowns. I would think that would put him at least at what you say pseudo number one, at least pseudo number one, if not a clear number one. Now, his last year with the Rams, he did have a down year, but I think he was hurt a lot last year. So that also could play into why they let him, he was hurt. Yeah, we can get rid of him. But I just want to put that out.
That Rams year is a little bit of an outlier. That offense was on a different level. And they had Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame level, they had MVP level Todd Gurley running so hard that folks just they had to focus on him more than the passing game, and then they just threw it over the top. Anyway, what I'm saying is there is no guys to really pay attention to on the Texans offense for very long stints of time. Kiki QT hurt pretty often. Of course, their other standout, not Willie Snead, I'm sorry, but Will Fuller hurt literally all the time. He's hurt every other game. So then it's just going to be who can do what he needs to do and stay on the field to help Brandin Cooks out. And I just don't.
Kenny Stills got to stay healthy too.
This is correct. So I don't know if this is going to work out for them. They're probably going to need to take another wide receiver in the draft. And I don't know if it's going to be their second round pick, but this wide receiver or this draft is very filled with wide receivers. And I think that they're going to need one. They're going to either have to find one in free agency still out there that's willing to do what it does and get out there with the Texans, or they're going to have to draft one. And I think they're probably going to try and draft one because money does not grow on trees.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a deep wide receiver class, so that's definitely a possibility. They could go and select a guy, because, hey, you never know. This might be a one-year deal, and then they'll trade him off next year. So, hey, you might as well draft one. So, I just feel like we'll have to see. But at least they have a guy who is capable of making big plays and is capable of giving Deshaun Watson a target. But that's all you can ask for with Deshaun. Deshaun has shown you he can make things happen with what he has. So I think that's something that they can look into. Now, do you think the Rams got enough back for Brandin Cooks? Or do you think they could have got more? Because obviously you said they're in salary cap situation. Don't really have a lot of draft capital. So
well, they got two, a second round pick, which is nice, and a 4th round. That's pretty good for Brandin Cooks. I would think for a guy whose value has literally decreased per trade, that's pretty good. I don't think you're getting a second round, a fourth round again if he were traded a year from now. So they sold while his value was kind of where it was at.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, listen, the Rams are in a situation where they need something. So, I mean, were they really in a position to be picky about it? You know? So, I think they'll just take what they have. Like I said, they're going to have to rely on these draft picks and young players to definitely step up for them if they want to continue to be a team that's competitive in the tough NFC West with San Francisco and Seattle and the up-and-coming Arizona Cardinals. So, definitely. And also, remember, they've had the oldest roster in the league. So I also think getting younger is very important. Because that's not necessarily the best thing to always be the oldest roster. You know? You kind of want to have a good mixture. You kind of want to be in the middle, you know?
When has it ever been good in sports to have the oldest roster?
I mean, it works for you early in the season because they're fresh. But when it gets later this season, you start seeing them kind of fall off a little bit because it's like, oh, you know, we're older. We don't have it like we used to. So, but like I said, I understand why these moves were made. And we'll have to just see what happens with the Rams moving forward. And, you know, you never know. Obviously, the draft's is in about a week now. So, week and a few days. So, it'll be interesting to see if any other moves are made between now and then for any team, not just the Rams.
That is true. And I don't know. I think there might be a lot of moving and shaking in this draft, but not so much to where it's going to affect the large scheme of things, I would assume. But we can only hope. I really want this draft to be very interesting, considering that it's going to be so vastly different than anything we've ever seen from the NFL on a televised standpoint. I heard Roger Goodell is going to be calling the names out of his basement, so I can only imagine how that's going to sound.
He'll be on that Zoom giving them announcements.
Oh, Lord. I know. I'm so tired of hearing about Zoom. Zoom this, Zoom that. You know, for Easter Sunday, my mother's cousin, he's a pastor, and he Zoom called his Easter service. And there was this lady who did not know how to mute her mic, and she kept talking during the service and doing the traditional, you know, Holy Ghost stuff. It was out of pocket. Let me just tell you, it was out of pocket. But let's take another break, and we can talk about some future draftees.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, Brice. So we've heard the recent news of Tua Tagaviloa's his leg. His surgery was a success, and he's 100% cleared by all NFL 32 officials that usually check this thing out. He had his pro day not too long ago, correct?
Yeah, he recorded his pro day, sent it to the league, all the teams. You can watch it all on certain people's Twitter's accounts. So yeah, he did a pro day. You know, trying to, you know, still show teams I'm healthy. Because, you know, a lot of teams are still scared by the hip. So a lot of teams he's trying to show it. So he had his pro day. And, yeah, so obviously, Ethan, one of the biggest concerns is if you were a GM, knowing that this is like a hip injury, but a serious one, Obviously, hip injuries can be very iffy. It can affect the player. It can make some people think he may never fully be healthy again. But we know that Tua is probably, I would say, the most NFL-ready guy to me in terms of just pure quarterback talent in this draft to me. But obviously the injury is what everybody's kind of about. So would you, if you were a GM and Tua was in your lap and you needed a quarterback, would you take him? Assuming Burrow's off the table, would you take Tua, or would you trade, or would you say we're going to draft another position, or we're going to draft a Herbert or Jordan Love?
Well, the thing about it is, this is me thinking that I am not in the Bengals position. I am in somebody lesser, lower in the draft, to where I have to think about other quarterbacks besides just taking the safe pick. So there's not a lot of safe picks in the NFL draft. Usually drafting is always a gamble. It's always a risk. You never know if it's going to 100% work out all the time. And you're not nobody's really a sure thing, but you can have pseudo sure things. You could know that a guy is probably going to work out at least a little bit. But Tua is not a 100% sure thing. But before the injury, we were pretty certain that he was going to be pretty good. We didn't know how, but quarterbacks are kind of hard. You never really know. Quarterbacks can be pretty much a crapshoot, and you're not too sure exactly who you're going to get. He's kind of like the 6'7", the 6'8" wing that's supposed to be an all-positional, like a big-time defender who can handle the ball a little bit and shoot threes. It's hard to find that, but that's what the league wants.
Mm-hmm.
So, or that's what the most sought-after position size versatility that the NBA looks for all the time. The same thing with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are a dime a dozen. They're not a dime a dozen. They don't have. You're not going to find a generational quarterback or a franchise guy in every draft and hit every single time. But you got to take the risk, and you got to look at the tape, saw what you got from Alabama all those years. You see he's a winner. He is somebody who works on his craft very much. He doesn't seem to make a lot of bad decisions with the football. He seems to be able to be poised in the pocket. And I look back to that game against LSU last year where he wasn't 100%, but he came out there and he played his heart out, and he looked really good. And it's hard for anybody to come out of that game and say that, oh, I don't like Tua. I like Tua less than I did coming out of that game. You probably like him even more because he went out there and competed at a high level, although he wasn't 100%, and he really gave LSU a run for their money more than any other team that year. So for me, if I was a GM, if I'm the Miami Dolphins, it's a no-brainer. Even if I have to trade up for him, it's a no-brainer because you never know. It's just the first round. Round. If you suck or if he sucks, you just make it work.
You've been drafting another guy the next year, potentially.
Yeah, you can do that. I am a big proponent of if you see it's not working out, you got to move on before it's too late. You should know not everything is about waiting and seeing with some people, see if they improve, because that's how coaches get fired. That's how GMs get moved around. That's how a lot of people lose jobs because you want to sit here and wait because you spent a first-round pick that got you nowhere, and you're back in the first round again in the top 5. Just go take somebody else if you really are sure that this is not the guy.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, I mean, if I was a GM, like if I was Miami, I'd do the same thing. I can understand why that's a risk for people because obviously, let's say he goes out there, he gets hurt as soon as he plays because of the hip, then you're going to be labeled, oh, he can't play in the league, he's too injury prone. But one thing I've always looked at is this. Usually quarterbacks who get injured in college do get injured in the NFL, but that does not stop them from having a good career. Deshaun Watson was injured in college, tore his ACL his rookie year, but he's still a franchise quarterback. Carson Wentz gets hurt every year, but we know he's a franchise quarterback. So I feel like you can't say just because he gets hurt, you can't pick him, because no quarterback is perfect. There is no perfect quarterback because at the end of the day, If Tua comes out there and he plays 14 games and he rocks the season for 14 games, and then he does it again the next year, well, it's not that he can't play. It's just, okay, we got to figure out, okay, how can we get him to stay healthy, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like with this injury stigma, I think as soon as, even if it's not a hip injury, if he gets hurt, people go like, oh man, here we go. See, he's not going to work. And he's just like, I think people are going to be overreacting to it since his hip has been such a big story. But if I was a GM, I would still go with the selection if I am confident, because there's just that chance you can't take. If you take Justin Herbert and he doesn't work out and Tua gets drafted by someone else and he becomes a franchise quarterback for them, you're going to get fired. So you might as well go with what you believe is the best guy. You take him and you go and live with it, because you can't. Sometimes you can get scared off of a player, and then that player ends up having a successful career, and the guy you drafted ends up being a bust or not what was the expectation. And now you're out here on the street on ESPN talking about analyzing latest draft picks because you made one bad selection. So I think that's going to be a very big thing that I think people have to look at. Because like I said, I understand injuries are a concern. It would be one thing if Tua got that hip injury in the national championship, because then you know he's not going to play this season. Then you can logically say, okay, yeah, I can understand it. But he got injured a little bit earlier. He's cleared now. There's months before the draft. And I mean, obviously draft in 2 weeks. There's months before the season. You don't know what he'll be like in August. I don't feel like you can sit here and say he'll still be a huge risk if he's not even going to get touched for the other 4 or 5 months. So if I was a GM, I definitely would draft Tua because I see what Tua can be. I think Tua is, I don't know how you feel about this, Ethan. I feel like he is a left-handed Drew Brees, in my opinion. So, yeah. Hall of Fame potential.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, you may be getting a little bit out of control with the with the Hall of Fame thing.
I mean, because I'm just saying, because if Drew Brees is his comp, Drew Brees is going to go to the Hall of Fame. If he is anywhere close to Drew Brees, he would be in that realm. Not necessarily, surefire.
I mean, just because Drew Brees is the comp doesn't mean that he's going to be the Drew Brees Hall of Famer. It just means that Drew Brees, he has the size of Drew Brees and probably the arm strength of Drew Brees. And that's about it. That's how player comparisons are. Just because Zion is big and a freak and they compare him to LeBron James doesn't mean that he's going to be LeBron James. We don't know if Zion's a Hall of Famer. We don't know that. We like to believe that he can live up to this potential to be great. We'd like to believe that Tua can live up to potential to be great. We all do. Everybody we get behind, we want to see do good. So if you're behind Tua, you want to see him succeed. If you're not behind Tua, I don't see why you'd want him to fail, but they have those type of people out there where they don't want to see somebody succeed.
Yeah, I do have a lot of those. Like you said, I just hope for the best. And I hope things work out. Even if he isn't a Hall of Famer, at least maybe he's able to have a sustainable career. Because even that is
how about a quality starter? Let's start there. I think a lot of NFL teams would just like a quality starter at the quarterback position instead of having to worry about.
What's a quality starter to you? That's the question. Are we talking like Andy Dalton starter? Are we talking that Ryan quality starter? Like, what are we looking at here?
I guess Tannehill has to be the floor, right?
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, Tannehill is the floor.
And everybody above him, that's just icing on the cake to some guys. If you can really make that work.
Yeah.
Or you want to have a trajectory to where you don't start off as a flamethrower of a quarterback, and then you progress into one like Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, yeah. All right, that's fair.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll get into some what ifs.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Okay, Brice, you came up with the idea. How about you break this down for everybody about what are these what ifs, what are the parameters, what are we going to be doing, how does the game work?
All right. Well, basically, so it's like kind of something I've seen a little bit on social media sometimes. Just a little bit of a what if. But what if maybe your team didn't draft this particular player? What if he had went to another team that around that time could have drafted him? And what would his career projection have been, and what would have the team's career projection would have been if they didn't end up drafting a certain player? So, for example, if I said, let's just say hypothetically, what if the Ravens didn't draft Lamar Jackson, but the Patriots drafted Lamar Jackson? What would have happened? Would have Brady left earlier? Would Lamar be able to succeed in that system? What would have happened with the Baltimore Ravens? Who would they have drafted? Things like that. Kind of an example. We're not doing that, but that's an example of kind of what we're doing here. I don't know if I need more explaining, but that's pretty much what we're aiming for. Just to kind of give more of an imagination, I guess you could say.
Okay, yeah, I don't think you need to go into more further detail. I think anybody can get that. Yeah, so go ahead, fire off the first one.
All right, so what if? What if Chicago did not draft Mitchell Trubisky, but they drafted Patrick Mahomes? What do you think would the Bears been? And what if the Chiefs ended up drafting Mitchell Trubisky instead?
Well, at the time, if I remember correctly, the Chiefs did not start Patrick Mahomes his first season. So who was the starter? Was it?
It was Alex Smith.
Alex Smith? All right. And then...
So, yeah.
And at the time, Matt Nagy was not the head coach when they drafted Mitchell Trubisky. He came on the scene the second year, right?
Yeah, he played his second year, yeah.
Okay. Which
was the first year of Matt Nagy. So let's just assume... I forgot who the quarterback was the previous year, too. Let's just assume, hypothetically, they still were going to go and get Matt Nagy that second year. Hypothetically. But, yeah, continue.
Okay. I don't know. It's tough because it's one thing to say. Everybody talks about how they could have got Pat Mahomes or they could have got Deshaun Watson. I was more sold on Deshaun Watson than Patrick Mahomes, personally, even though everybody seems under the sun now to know that Patrick Mahomes was the next coming of Jesus Christ in football terms. But I just thought that Deshaun Watson was overall a winner, and we saw what he could do on a national scale, and he was magic. So even Deshaun, taking him would have been probably the better choice. But it's really hard to say because you don't know how he would have progressed in his first year underneath a different head coach with a different mindset. Because when you go, like Andy Reid is an offensive-minded head coach, always has been, and he's been really, really innovative for all of his career. And as a play caller and as figuring how to use players to their best ability. And I'm not too sure if the Bears would be as creative. We understand that Matt Nagy is one of those offensive guru type guys, supposedly. And in his first year with Mitchell Trubisky, it looked pretty decent. He definitely stepped up as far as what he was projected to be from. And then the year afterwards, it looked like he regressed and took a step back. And it wasn't as creative on the play calling, and things just didn't look how they were supposed to be coming out of a one-year stint with Trubisky at the Realms with him. So I don't know how it would look with Patrick Mahomes, considering we don't know if Patrick Mahomes would develop into the guy he is today. I think a lot of things have to do with system and overall trust in quarterbacking. And I mean, granted, Matt Nagy near the end of last year, it didn't look like he trusted Trubisky to even put the ball down the field, let alone really do anything creative with him. Like I'd rather see Matt Nagy call some runs for him rather than some of the really safe play action or just whatever passing scheme that they were running with him, because it just wasn't working. So I don't know. I'm not a big what if guy when it comes to the Patrick Mahomes thing, because a lot of that is happenstance and chance, and you never really know how some guy is going to pan out somewhere else. What do you think?
Well, I think in Deshaun's case, if he got drafted by Chicago, or not Deshaun's, but like if Mahomes got drafted by Chicago, I think that he would still be good because he had the talent. But I do think the Bears don't have the same offense as the Chiefs in terms of talent. And then, again, Mahomes, let's say that he sound the bench again for another year, like that first year. So obviously that's when Matt Nagy wasn't there. Then he comes when Matt Nagy gets there. It could work. I mean, if they had, because you got to think about the team in general. They had the elite defense, so they would still have been a great defensive team. And I'm sure Deshaun would have had, I mean, not Deshaun, I keep saying Deshaun. Patrick Mahomes would have had a good year, but I don't know if he would be MVP Patrick Mahomes. That's what I don't think would happen. And in Mitchell's case, it would be interesting if in Kansas City, because the thing is, again, he would sit a year behind Alex Smith. He would come into a team that has Andy Reid, that has Tyreek Hill. He has all these weapons. I believe, they have all these weapons, Kareem Hunt, all that. So he would definitely have the talent to be good. And I think then you could definitely know, okay, if he's not lighting it up with this talent, he's not the guy. Where you could maybe make that argument in Chicago. Well, Chicago never had the greatest offensive weaponry in the league. Where Kansas City, you could say they have the best offensive talent in the league. So it would definitely, I think, would give us more definitive answers. But I feel like Patrick Mahomes would still prove he can play in this league and be a good quarterback. He may not be MVP elite, but he would still be good. You could always still say he seems like he could be a top guy. I still feel like Chicago would be successful. And, so I think Patrick Mahomes is the guy I feel like that would work in that situation. But Mr. Trubisky, you would truly know with this talent and this coaching, Andy Reid would probably know, all right, this guy either got it or he doesn't. So that would be my thought process on it.
Okay, you made an interesting point about the Chiefs having just a plethora of offensive weapon talent and all that. So that's the thing. You got to look at it from this perspective. Even if I think Patrick Mahomes showcased this year that he can still do some things. He won't be as effective, but he can still be a good quarterback with less talent, because this year, outside of Travis Kelce, everybody was really in and out of the lineup. Like, he didn't really have his whole consistent tools and weapons that he had last year. And, of course, they lost Kareem Hunt. And it was really just him and Travis Kelce. And then even he got hurt for a little while. Of course, Tyreek Hill was out of the lineup, in and out. Sammy Watkins was not. He had one big game, legitimately just one big game last season, and did not show back up until the playoffs, essentially. So Patrick Mahomes was really trying to make a lot of things work. And at the end of the day, him, Mikael Hardman, Williams, they all kind of band together and made this thing happen. So who's to say that he couldn't do that in Chicago? I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, a lot of that feels like scheme fit, knowing your personnel rather than just the pure talent of Patrick Mahomes. Because I think the pure talent of Patrick Mahomes is shown fullest when he has those level of weapons, that he is allowed to, sling it a little bit freer. He's allowed to be able to do certain things. It's kind of like the whole Steph Curry thing where, like in the finals against Toronto, right? When everybody went down and it was literally just the Steph Curry trying to do some things and figure this out, and he's just getting beat up because they're doubling him, they're coming off his screens, they're hedging him, and it did not look good for Steph. But he still was able to do some things, but he wasn't to be his most effective, most efficient self. He needs his running mates, and I think that's the bottom line when it comes to guys like that. And I think Patrick Mahomes is no different. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers might be a little different because you could say that he hasn't had really great running mates outside of, Devontae Adams since the Super Bowl, but that's a whole different story. Quarterbacks need wide receivers and tight ends, and that's just the bottom line. They need weapons.
Yeah.
But
would you say it would be safe to say that if Deshaun was in Kansas City, he'd be pretty much where Patrick Mahomes is right now, or what do you think?
I think, yeah, I would say so. I would think so. I don't think Bill O'Brien is the most creative offensive mind, and I don't believe they have the best weaponry surrounding Deshaun Watson. So I'd like to see Deshaun Watson get some more help, especially now, considering that Mr. Nuke is gone.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and take a break since we're at that time, and we're going to come back and let's talk about some uniforms.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Okay, Brice, so some new duds, some new unis have come out for certain teams. Even some teams are getting new branding overall for their respective teams. Let's go ahead and start with what just recently came out. So the Colts have changed or have made a new logo. It's now is like a C with the inside of the C being kind of the outline of the state of Indianapolis. I'm sorry, not the state of Indianapolis, but the Indianapolis Colts. So here we are, right? Wait, I am messing up. Indianapolis is not a state. Am I correct? It's a city.
Yeah, it's a city. Indiana's a state.
I'm losing my mind, clearly. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it is the outline of the state of Indiana, which...
Oh, yeah.
Or it has the interior of the outlining of the state of Indiana, which is similar to what the Pacers do. The Pacers have a similar style. I know they, on their basketball court at the arena, they have the outline of their state. And I don't know, it looks kind of weird because it has the little Colt bolts, so... like the shoehorn, they have the little bolts on the C. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of it personally.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, obviously the last logo was just the normal horseshoe. The C, I mean, I guess it just depends on how you feel. I'm okay with it. It's not even like I'm like I love it, but they're fine. You know, when I've looked at some of what people are saying, I'm getting a mixed reaction. Some people love it, some people hate it. I guess it just depends on your interior designer taste, I guess you could say. Because I mean, if you look at everything else, like just the normal Colts and the Colts with the it's fine. But like when you talk about the C itself, I can get what you mean. Like I said, it's a rebranding. It's something that will probably grow on everybody, I think. And it'll be like, okay, but I'm okay with them. I'm okay with them.
Okay. How about the New Jerseys? So let's go there, right? The New Jerseys. So should we just go ahead and get right into the Falcons, or do you want to talk about Tampa Bay's first?
What do you know about the Falcons?
All right. So what do you like and what do you not like about your team's New Jerseys?
Oh, okay. So, all right. So I get what they were going for. I get what they were going for. Obviously, again, rebranding. I think everybody's talking about the colorful ones. I'm more of a fan of our black one, like the all black ones.
Yeah, I thought the all black ones were pretty hard.
Yeah, I like the all black ones. I can understand. I think the one that we're going to mainly use is the red up top with a little bit of the blend when it gets down to the pants and black pants.
Oh, I think it's the gradient.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, I think. Well, also when we heard about the rebranding as a Falcon fan, and there's a lot of Falcon fans, I think we wanted to go back closer to like the 04 Falcon uniforms. We wanted something like a benches uniform with some new stuff in it. And instead, it seems like what they said they tried to do was combine old and new. So that's why it looks the way they look. Now, if we're talking about the all whites, I think it kind of reminds me of Color Rush, except it's not all red.
That's what I was about to say. I thought the all whites were pretty good.
Yeah. Like, you know, I like the all whites. I mean, and if you look at the black one with the white pants, I mean, that's what we usually have, except it's the old vintage one with the old helmets. Instead, now it's just more updated. So, I mean, it's not like the uniforms are just so drastically different that it's just like, whoa, what is this? I just think people were expecting a different style, or they wanted a different style. But for me, overall, I'm completely okay. I think when we get out there in the field, I don't think we're going to be out here looking crusty. I think some people think our uniforms reminds them of an XFL team.
Oh, man.
Or something.
That's well, I will say this. I think that some of it is a little bit overblown, but I do think that the numbers are humongous on the torso of the jerseys. The numbers they should not be that big. And the red Atlanta or the ATL there, it's kind of distasteful, honestly. I don't know why it's
the
there.
ATL?
Yeah, it's just...
Would you have rather them just put Atlanta or...
Either Atlanta or Falcons or something, but ATL, it just seems forced. It just seems kind of forced, to be honest.
Yeah, because on the black and white pants, they don't even have the ATL on that one. They just have the NFL logo, I believe, on it. So...
I'm just not... It does get me thinking, though, about, you know how the NBA has earned jerseys and have city jerseys?
Yeah.
How cool would it be if the NFL was actually, you know, a little bit more fun? And you could have, like, city jerseys, you can have earned jerseys, so all the teams that have earned Super Bowls get a specialized new jersey that is very cool and hip. You know how much they'd sell? How much they'd make?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the Color Rush jerseys, which are, some of them are okay, some of them are really good.
It really depends on the team's colors. Hit and miss with the Color Rush.
Right. And a lot of people really like those. Like, I know the Saints, everybody loves the Saints Color Rush jerseys. It doesn't matter if you hate the team or not. They understand that the gold and whites are pretty good. Like they're that nice. And when I got my Alvin Kamara jersey, I got it in Color Rush because I liked the Color Rush special, and I didn't know how long they were going to keep the Color Rush going. So I'd rather, maybe get the one that may not come back. So I got it in Color Rush, and I can just imagine having like an earned jersey where it's specific to the Super Bowl or just the team, or like a city jersey for things like Atlanta. Like, what would it be for Atlanta, or would it be for things like LA? Or just, I think it'd be pretty cool in how creative they can get, because the NBA has gotten super creative with their jerseys. Some haven't worked, like the sleeve jerseys didn't last too long, but the special,
what they call them, the Christmas days.
Yeah, the Christmas Day jerseys. They just get.
Well, LeBron didn't like them necessarily. He was a big person. He didn't like the sleeves.
No, he would rip them because he said it feel weird. But what do you think? What do you think about having multiple jerseys, some real specialized jerseys?
Well, I think the difference is just also you got to think about the NBA has like 41 home games for each team. So you have multiple chances to use their other uniforms. Where in the NFL, you only have 8. So you want to probably do your main uniforms the majority of those games. And then you might do maybe like 1 or 2 games of vintage, and then maybe one Color Rush. I mean, back at that time when Color Rush was a thing. Because the thing is, you really can't have too many jerseys, if that makes sense. Because there's just not enough games to wear all of them. Unless you have like 3 different road, 3 different home, and you plan to wear them in, the games that you have. But even that, it's just kind of like, I think they would just be like, I don't feel like my team's switching up to uniforms every other week. I just want to know what our main ones are going to be, and then we can maybe switch to an alternative one or 2 weeks out of the year. You know what I'm saying? Because usually they make these decisions, too, on when they're going to even wear certain uniforms, like way before the season starts. Where, NBA, sometimes they may be like, all right, a little bit later in the season, let's try to wear these and let's wear those, and, stuff like that. So I think it really kind of depends. If the NFL have more games, especially, I think it can work. I think it's just, having to fit that into just 8 home games. And then think about if you're playing overseas, that takes away a home game. So then you may only have like actual 7 or 6 home games. And I just feel like it'd just be too difficult for every team to kind of try to be all creative with multiple uniforms. So you might just do like 2 uniforms total in terms of like at home. And then maybe you might switch up the style for road. Just maybe have the color on top, pant and cut it white on the bottom, or vice versa, depending on the team. So it just really depends to me.
I'm trying to think, because I think there's ways to do it, honestly. I really do think there's ways to figure it out. You can do a city jersey night. You can do potentially a earned jersey every other year or something. It doesn't have to be like a every year thing. But hey, here we are. Let's take our final break here, and we're going to get into our final segment.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Okay, for the last segment, Brice and I have thought about doing a little bit of guess the record, guess the success for quarterbacks who have moved around. So, of course, Phillip Rivers is on the Colts. Tom Brady is in Tampa, so Tampa Bay, Tampa Brady, whichever one you want to call it. of course,
Teddy
Carolina has Teddy Bridgewater and Tyrod
Nick Foles
Taylor.
in Chicago.
Yeah, Nick Foles in Chicago, Tyrod Taylor for the Chargers. I think that's everybody who's moved around, per se. Right? I don't think there's any...
Yeah, for the most part. As far as I know, yeah.
All right, so out of that batch, who do you think will have the most instantaneous success? So the first year they would have the most success.
I mean, it's easy to say. Just go ahead and go with Tom Brady. Really, I mean, he has the best. He went to the best team available, and some people would say he was the best quarterback available. So if you look at those two things and you combine it together, you would think Tom Brady would be the most successful quarterback all of them in his first year, just because he has the two number one receivers. He has O.J. Howard. He has Bruce Arians, considered one of the better offensive minds in the league and a very respected head coach. And I think when you look at everything they've brought together, and obviously, listen, they're still building this team together. It's not like they just signed Tom Brady and just said, okay, we're done. They're still trying to, build some things. They lost a couple of running backs, so they're probably going to try to find some guys in the draft to build off of. Obviously, they still defensively need to improve their secondary so the team overall can have a more successful season. Because I don't think you want Brady getting all these shootouts all the time. But I definitely think that it's easy to go ahead and say him just based off those facts. Obviously, like we've talked about before, the only thing that also could hurt him is just, they're probably going to have a shortened off season, so he won't have a lot of time to work with the guys. But, Brady is one of those guys. It doesn't take him forever to get in sync with people. He just needs a couple of games underneath his belt, and then he should be clicking at all cylinders with the Tampa Bay offense that has plenty of potential to be a top 5 offense, in my opinion, in the NFL. So, how about you, Ethan? Who's a quarterback you think? I guess if you couldn't pick Tom, who was a quarterback you think would have the most success in his first year?
Probably Phillip Rivers, and it's not because in particularly I'm a fan of the latest Phillip Rivers performances. I just think that the infrastructure is already there to succeed, and he's in a division that likes to flip-flop, and we're not too sure who is going to be the top dog of said division, maybe the Titans, but we've seen the division flip before, so we can never be too sure that the Titans are going to be the guys. And I think the Colts have a lot of talent, if healthy, to really make a push for some things. So I would probably pick Phillip Rivers and the Colts before I would pick anybody else outside of Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Bucks, because both those two teams seem to be the most ready to make some sort of push. That's why they went and got these older guys, because everybody else seems to be on board with making a final push towards the promised land.
Okay. Do you think, not necessarily from a record perspective in Carolina, but do you think Teddy could still have a successful season without winning a lot of games, just in terms of what Carolina has given him to work with and the state of this team, especially being in one of the tougher conferences in football?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that he would have a hard time adjusting. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a pretty coachable guy. He's been on different teams and different scenarios, and he seemed to thrive in both of the last two that he was at. Of course, the one in Minnesota ended up a little bit too short-lived because of the injury. Came back, played for New Orleans in a big-time role, and did what he needed to do. And now he's a much more paid guy, has his own team, and I think he'll find that he'll have some success, but there's definitely it's not going to be easy. You got to look at success in a different vacuum when it comes to their team, because they're in a division that arguably might be the best division in football and one of the more quarterback top-heavy places to play football in. So you have Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady all still playing elite-level football, and you can say, well, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, they could be falling off the wagon. You never know. But you can't make predictions based off of that. You never know when somebody's actually going to fall off the wagon. So all you can really look at is the fact that they lost Luke Kuechly. Their wide receivers are still pretty young. They lost Greg Olsen. Cam is gone. It's a new regime. And they got Teddy Bridgewater. And they just paid Christian McCaffery.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really look too much deeper into that. All you can do is if you're a Carolina fan, you have to put your faith into the system that Matt Rule is going in with and seeing what exactly is going to be the move for them. Like, what's the plan of action? Is it to see what you have and still try and work through the draft next year, or are they going to try and gun for a playoff position straight off the bat and really battle it out with these NFC South giants, essentially?
Mm-hmm. I get that. I mean, hey, I definitely feel like them adding that extra playoff spot will make things very interesting for a lot of teams, just because that's an extra spot to get in. So teams may be just like, hey, we could just get that 7th spot. I don't, because I wouldn't be, because you know how even sometimes in the NFL, one side of the conference has a bad year where their 6th seed is like 8-8, 7-9 sometimes.
Yeah.
And so imagine adding another. That next team could be 6-10, so you could have a 4th-place 6-10 Carolina team potentially make the playoffs, and the rest of the NFC South would be good. That'd be kind of crazy to think about, wouldn't it? An entire division making the playoffs.
Well, there was a time, I remember where 3 teams made it. It was Carolina, the Saints, and the Falcons a few years back, where the Saints had to play Carolina 3 times that year.
And they lost. And then didn't Carolina lose all 3?
Yeah. They went 0-3 that year. That was the year where the Falcons and the Saints could have met in the NFC Championship game, but they both lost.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
So, it was not fun. It was not a fun time for any of those teams, because imagine if that were to have happened, it would have just been ugly. It would have been ugly. Would have been bad, because people don't understand just how deep the rivalry goes. So a playoff game, and it's a 1-1. It was like that was the tiebreaker game. Oh, it would have been off the chain. It would have been out of control. Yeah,
that definitely, man. And you know, it'd be crazy too if, let's say, a 6-10 team got in and they made a push for it to the Super Bowl. You know how wild that'd be? That was like, wow, this is, I don't know if we like this. I mean, at least, like, I don't know if we want this.
No, they would like it. It would create a new precedent. It wouldn't be like, hey, you're never out till you're out. I mean, all those 7-9 Giants teams that made it through, nobody's over here crying about that and saying, I guess because they had a winning record, but the last time somebody actually was upset was when Seahawks made it into the playoffs, had a bad record, but they still beat the Saints somehow. You know,
well, actually, it was actually the Panthers. So I think the Panthers got in, and they had tied that season, and they had more losses than wins, and they had won a playoff game. I remember that year because I remember they played the Cardinals, but Carson Palmer was hurt. And they had Ryan Lindley. That was the year Carolina did not have a winning record, but still went to the divisional round, but they lost. So it wasn't the Seattle Seahawks. But I know that's the first thing we think of because, you know, Seattle, you know, that happened. Right. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Right. Yeah, it does add something, though.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to encourage you all to please rate and review the podcast. 5 stars, 5 stars. And don't forget to follow our social media to keep up to date with all our new podcasts that do come out. Brice, last words.
Everybody just keep hanging in out there. Hope everybody's surviving, and we're going to make it through.
I agree with said sentiments. Thank you all for listening, and see you all next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.